This episode is sponsored by THORNE, the official supplement partner of CrossFit. THORNE has a rich history of manufacturing supplements with unmatched quality and efficacy. Trusted by the Mayo Clinic, U.S. national teams, and hundreds of professional and collegiate sports organizations. THORNE is your new go-to for all nutritional supplements and diagnostic tests. Find them at thorne.com/u/CrossFit. That's THORNE/U/CrossFit for 25% off nutritional supplements. And for all you affiliate owners out there listening, THORNE has a special offer for you in the Affiliate Partner Network. Simply log into your Affiliate Partner Network on CrossFit.com and click on the THORNE icon to learn all about the awesome products and services you can take advantage of as an affiliate owner. THORNE is proud to be an official supplement partner of CrossFit. Welcome back, everyone, to the CrossFit Games podcast. I'm your host, Chase Ingraham, with Adrian Conway and Niki Brazier, and it's been 4 days, 8 events, some weather delays, a late night in Miami, Florida, and it's a late night for you, Niki. Thank you for staying up with us.
Of course. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Now, we're going to recap the weekend that was the 2022 Wodapalooza, 10 years strong, and it did not disappoint because we had amazing races from start to finish. And honestly, at the end of the day, whoever wins doesn't win or whatever happened. To me, if I can get some good races all the way up to the end, I'm a happy fan of the sport. Adrian, what's it like for you? It's like, do you need the names to do their thing, or is it like, listen, I just want some drama?
I just want some drama. I'm the same as you, right? Like I'm not out there on the floor, and if I don't have my preference of athlete that's really carrying, the back of my emotion, then I'm like, somebody come out, put on a show. And in fact, it's even better if it's not what we predicted or preferred, because that means we're watching some new happen out there, and that always excites me for the future of the sport.
Well, listen, I don't watch The Bachelor. This is the best drama series I can get when it comes to these type of things. But let's look at the stories of the day really quick. And it started off in a weather delay. I remember getting an alert on my phone. It says, the venues are going to be evacuated. And then I go to the live stream. I was like, well, there's still people competing. So I'm not sure what the deal is. And inclement weather came in and did their thing like it tends to do every once in a while at Wodapalooza. Niki, this is nothing new for Wodapalooza, yet it did derail the schedule quite a bit for spectators and athletes alike.
Oh, totally. And I mean, I was hearing that there were some, because the team competition especially was supposed to kind of end a little bit earlier. So I know that there were some folks that thought that they were going to have to leave completely, catch flights home, not finish out the competition. But man, I mean, Chase, you said it. This happens almost every year. There's at least one day Florida just be like that sometimes, where there's some thunderstorms and then it clears up and then everybody gets back out there. And so yeah, I can't say that I'm not super shocked, but I'm glad they were able to get back on track eventually in a late night. But what a way to finish out the competition, 10 p.m.
Funny
on a
story
Sunday.
about people catching flights is that Rich and his team were at the airport getting ready to leave. Flight gets delayed by several hours, so they came back to do the final event. They were gone. They had pieced out.
Right.
Which I was like,
we got lives.
really?
We got shit to do. We'll see you later.
I get it. It was a late night for a lot of people there, but a funny story there. And again, it's not uncommon that happens. I think the cool part about Wodapalooza is, they keep their calm. They've done this enough times. Maybe the first time it rained ever, there was a bit more panic, but now not as much. The team is so big. They know what to do when this happens. The spectators and athletes were very patient. Again, this is a celebration of fitness. This isn't, the ultimate test of fitness to decide who,
Right.
Who's the next king and queen of CrossFit. So everybody was pretty cool there. But one of the things I liked the most when I was watching was, we saw, some countries that were represented in the most stereotypical way on the team side, which was absolutely fabulous. And for me, I don't know about you guys, but my favorite one was the French team, who were wearing the most French striped horizontal shirts with the red berets. And then at the end, they threw out a baguette. And I was like, just lean into
Come on,
it, man. This is
all the way. I love it.
I mean, as one who's a bit patriotic myself,
I
was a big fan. So any other outfits you guys liked out there this weekend? Nikki?
Well, I mean, you cannot deny the sheer styling of the Aussie team at the
Yeah.
last the last workout. With I don't know what's going on. Those were some short shorts. It was thighs out, skies out for those guys, and then button down shirts. I was like, we're making a statement out here, but I kind of like it. I don't think they liked it after the first set of ring muscle ups. I think a lot of those shirts came off. They were like, screw these
Yeah,
collars. But it was fun to watch. That was a party team for sure.
Adrian,
absolutely.
you've been on a team of 3, and I think I remember crop tops
Hey,
for
you
the
know it.
meat market that was your men's trio.
Absolutely. Yeah, we dropped the crops. I think it was on 2016. So it was with the
Mhm.
two other gentlemen, Mitch Spute and Brennan Fjord, that we would win the games with in 2017. And we just wanted to go out and feel the Miami vibes. We were under the lights, and that's one of the unique parts about specifically being on a team is you got to coordinate the uniform a little bit.
Mm.
You look good, you play good, and so it just really went hand in hand. Now this might be very predictable, but I actually really enjoyed Mayhem in Paradise's outfits this weekend. They
Mm.
came out supporting the firefighters on the first
Yeah.
day, and then they had these really fly Miami
Those are
Heat
cool.
jerseys. I was like,
Yeah.
Yep.
"Excuse me, what? What kind of
Tho
connection was that? Like, who
those are
who
cool.
dropped those jerseys off to Rich and the squad?"
Mhm.
And then I noticed a little bit of editing due to a fairly popular name brand on Rich's jersey that he edited out very smoothly, by the way, to make sure
Yes.
that I'm sure his checks probably still arrive on time. But I love the uniform aspect and the camaraderie that gets behind and the fun behind planning that kind of stuff.
That was super cool, but let's get into the events for the day, and the word of the day, really, to start things off, was elimination, right? We had an
Mm.
elimination style event to start that, but it wasn't the only elimination that we had. There was actually an elimination of a particular movement on both the men's, women's, and teams side, and what the event was programmed to be was 30-foot handstand walk, 60-foot sandbag carry, 300-foot shuttle run, and then 60-30 once you go back down the list. But the athletes and head staff had some concerns about moisture and wetness on the course with those turnarounds. And I don't know, I kind of went a little back and forth. Is like, if everyone's in agreement with that being the case, then, so be it. They made a decision to switch the shuttle run because of the multiple turns that there would be, maybe athletes slipping all over the place, and thinking more safety and going to the burpees. Um, but I don't know, Adrian. It's kind of one of those things. Is, if it's safety, I'm for it. If it's more of like, I just don't want to do it, I think that's a different thing. How do you see that playing out on a wet course?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I got to be honest, and you guys got to know this about me if you've followed me long enough or know this about me. It's like I'm old school through and through. I'm a football player that's sad that you can't hit someone with your face anymore, and I want them to tackle low and tackle high and tackle all around. So when it comes to safety, I'm like, hey, if you're worried about your safety, slow down your run. And it's up to
Mm.
you to make the choice if the risk is worth the reward or if it isn't. And if your footing is unsure, we'll make it sure. Or if you're like, hey, this is my chance. Some of those guys are worried about their safety, and I'm just here to get this money and get paid. Then you can run and be reckless. And I think, to me, as a spectator, out of the appreciation of just what sport is growing up, I like the element of risk. Now, if this was a decision about a barbell and these guys were going to be
Mm.
overhead in a
Yeah.
circumstance with a wet floor, and then I'm like, if these guys did risk it and it cost them something very serious or severity that would affect them long term, I would of course be all for it. But the run thing, I was like, oh man, let's leave that in there, and then they could just run slow if they need to. Um, and the real reason I felt that way, Chase, is because they were already on their hands walking upside down as fast as many of them can run.
Mhm.
So that was also a question in my mind. I was like, is it really changing much? And are they really worried about their safety? Because maybe they shouldn't be upside down like that and moving
Yeah.
as fast as they are, if that's really the concern.
Yeah, and that's a decision that they ended up making as a group. In fact, you got to see some behind the scenes footage of the directors talking to the athletes, and it being one big group decision. Now, Nikki, you've been behind the scenes quite a bit, and it's not often that there's a poll of the athletes that are involved with making a decision like that.
No, it's not. And I think that what we're seeing truly is an evolution in the sport when it comes to athlete input and athlete safety. I mean, over the last couple seasons, we've seen, organizations like the PFAA come into play. We've seen the
Mm.
CrossFit Games take athletes, retired athletes, coaches, whatever, onto panels and boards to make sure that their programming and safety is accounted for as well. And I think it just makes sense as these events get bigger, both in season and out of season, that we kind of continue the conversation between the event organizers and the people who are taking the field of play. And I think it just makes everything a lot more open and transparent. It makes everyone feel heard. I mean, I'm a little bit with Adrian, if I can be honest, just as a spectator. Like, I like a little bit of the like, hey, you showed up to play and this is what we're giving you. And so you better, do it or don't. And if you don't want to, then we'll see you later. It's kind of not our
Yeah.
problem. At the very same time, like, I do think that there is a huge evolution in what we're doing here. And I like to see that everyone has at least a chance to have that communication effort in play, because I mean, the event organizers could have very well been like, okay, we hear you, but we just don't agree. And so we're going to continue going on this way. But the fact that the conversation is open, I think is pretty cool.
Well, some people show up for NASCAR for the race. Some people show up for the crashes. I mean, that's just
That's true.
that's a little bit of the sport that we're
That's
playing.
true.
But with the switch from the shuttle run to the line facing burpees, Adrian, is what was like that dramatically changed that event, because it
Hmm.
went from just like speed and intensity, and we're like, okay, is the sandbag carry going to mess with some people picking it up or dropping it? And then it turned into really more of a test of fitness than just a test of don't screw this up.
Yeah, and I liked it. I mean, the burpees became a bit of a factor as I watched it unfold more than I suspected, and sadly, I think there were just some athletes that didn't think through what the burpee could be, meaning
Mm,
that it was just a line facing burpee. They were almost doing as if it was a bar facing burpee with
yeah.
the same kind of tempo and the same kind of intensity. And those that looked at it differently and approached it with a different kind of perspective and intensity, they created separation during those 20 reps. And so for me going into it, I was like, oh, lame. This is going to be boring. Like everyone's going to move the same pace. Like they're just going to be
Mhm.
hammering these things out. But they weren't. Some people were still trying to casually step them up and getting too much air on their jump over the line.
Right. It's like
Wh-
there's nothing
there's nothing
there's
there.
nothing there.
Right.
Just hover and like get back down on the ground again. Like you should just be throwing yourself down. Um,
Mm,
and the one thing that I will say that I liked, and I think we did see this in some of the lesser experienced, specifically teams, and actually it did carry over into pretty some significant individual outcomes, was that those extra 20 burpees, specifically if you advanced, start to accumulate on your triceps and shoulders.
mm.
Then that last handstand walk became a bit more of a factor than it may have without us needing to pump blood and oxygen to our chest and triceps and giving it a chance to go to our legs if it were a run instead. So I was a little skeptical on how it would allow the event to play out, and then they won me over.
Yeah. Well, we got some great finishes on individual and the team side. And you're right. Watching someone step up over a line burpee, I was like, if I just told you to do 20 burpees as fast as you can, you wouldn't be stepping. Like, you're right. I feel like some people got almost like brainwash program. They're like, oh, line facing, bar facing, box. I have to jump over this. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then you see Chris and Holt over there. I'm like, I'll take this. I'll take this and run with it, because I know
Right.
it's a
Completely.
line. It's
Mhm.
it's not
Mhm.
it's not an object. So it did prove to have some fun races. And man, the team side was just as exciting. They had a relay style format of what that was. And the handstand walk races and the sandbag carries, like I got a lot more races here than I have in other elimination style events in the past. So that it did turn out pretty well, all things considered, for what it was. And as we move from that event to the final event, I'm just gonna sit here and it's like, is it over yet? I'm sorry. I,
Uh,
you know, listen, you got 7 great, fun, unique tasks across the weekend. We flipped a pig sled. We did GHD buy-ins with med balls and heavy double unders, and then a barbell complex with a short bar that threw everybody for a loop. We got in the water. We used a brand new rower. We ran on air runners in front of people. We climbed ropes under fireworks, and we did all this stuff. And then we ended up with this 55 devil press final or worm clean and jerk final for the teams, and I was like, you it was right there. It was right there.
Yep.
And
Uh,
it was kind of a bummer because it was, and what made it worse, I think, is because of the day that we've had, right? We had a
yeah.
weather
Sure.
delay,
Yep.
it was late, people were tired. I'm sure the athletes were over it. And Nikki, as a spectator, right? If I'm just in the stands and I'm like, all right, it's coming down to the final event. What's it going to be? What's it going to be? And then you see that, walk us through that as a fan of the sport in the nicest way possible.
Okay.
Or real,
I
like,
think
it's like, I mean,
I think
just
this is
give me your feelings on it, because we all have a
yeah.
different kind of feeling here. I would love it from your perspective, just from the fan media side, is watching that go down, knowing there's things on the line.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's no question in my mind that this is a nasty test of fitness, right? In and of itself, 55 and 55, that's going to be hard. And the best athletes are going to do the best. But the problem is the not so best athletes are going to do really not the
Mm,
best. And it's a little bit boring watching 5 straight minutes, 8 straight minutes of devil's presses.
mm.
So, from a media standpoint, I'm sure that they were in the back being like, how many cool angles can we get of the exact same movement over and
Had to
over?
be.
Probably not that many. So they had to get creative and continue to tell the story on the broadcast, which they always do an excellent. Sean just does
Mhm.
such a good job of.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge. And as a spectator, I know like this is gonna really prove who deserves to be here and who deserves to make it out onto the podium. But yeah, it's a little boring following the elimination
Right.
event that was like so exciting. Like it would have been more fun for me if that were the final.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, could have
Yeah,
I
like,
guess it could have been worse.
if that event was in the weekend, I'd be like, "Okay, I
Yeah,
get it. You just wanna punish these guys and just slog fitness is what we can call it, right? Mudding in the horse racing world, right? If you
sure.
just switched them, right?
Yeah,
Just if this was, if the Devil Press was event 7 and the elimination was event 8, I would have gone out on a high, but I
right,
didn't,
right.
right? And
Yeah. No,
Adrian,
and
oh, go
I
ahead.
said the same thing at when we were watching Rogue. I said the same thing
Yeah, yeah.
about switching those events too.
Mhm. I
Yep.
remember
I
that.
like the elimination style ones, but then I feel like there probably would have been complaints in the opposite direction. I was like, it's the last event. Let us all do the things all the time.
Mhm.
I can see it from the opposite
Which is
side.
funny 'cause we're, like, complaining about 2 different things and asking for the other one, right? It's like, I
Totally.
wanted the elimination one last here, but first here, and this is and that
Right.
and the other. And
Right.
sometimes that's just the way it's programmed and put together and how the athletes tackle it. And that's
Yep.
Mhm.
it's why it's easier to talk about what happened than to maybe do it ourselves in the
No
present tense,
doubt.
which I get. Adrian, as an
100%.
athlete, right?
Yeah.
7 events, 3.5 days, you're coming into the final, it's been delayed 7 hours, and you have to sit back there and knowing that this is the event programmed. And for me, I'm like, that just doesn't look fun for the athletes to do. And not that it has to be, but this goes a little bit beyond like, oh, that sucked. Like, I feel like, is there an element of like, I don't want to do this?
No, not in my opinion, because I like this workout for my specific capacities.
Mm,
But I will say this: I think that there might be a little bit of that when you look down the line at the RX, the intermediate, the scaled divisions. But from an elite perspective, to me, and I hope this is where we're coming in the sport of fitness, where if you show up, you're showing up to either win or contend to win or learn the lessons that are a part of you being there so one day you can win. And so I hope that those athletes, even if they were in a tried position and they were like, yo, I'm last in this event, I'm going to get last, right? Like, even if they were in that bad place and, yo, we've been sitting here for 6.5 hours, or my hotel's further than everybody else's, so I couldn't
mm,
go back. I had to go to the coffee shop for 5.5 hours. Like, there's a lot of things these athletes really have to manage and deal with, specifically if they don't have a ton of experience. So they could have been in that down and out type mentality. But I hope that when they took the floor, it was for that kind of positive effect, regardless of where they stood. And I feel like at least, I'm really thinking through the physiological side of this workout, and at least there's an opportunity there. It's like everybody came out breaking up the toes to bar, right?
Right.
Then when you get to the devil's press, there's a break in time under tension. Every time you set the dumbbells down, you flop down on the ground. Hey, if that's going to be slow, make it slow. If it's going to be
Mhm.
fast, make it fast. It's a little different than if it was like 185-pound thrusters and wall walks. I'll tell you that. It's a little bit, you know what I mean? Like that. I think
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
that workout to end the weekend for us as 35 to 39-year-olds at the games this year, and I was like, oh, so there's got to be some guys that are like, hey, I don't want to do this workout, bro.
Yeah.
Like they didn't want to get under that barbell and didn't want to do those wall walks because
Mhm.
they couldn't adjust where they were in the standings, and it was
Yeah.
devastating, right? Devastating. So I think this workout was hard, uh, but maybe a little less suffering than something that it could have been.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I get that. But so those are your two events for the day. And before we take a look at who stood on top of the podium, we wanted to say a little thank you to our sponsor, Arasti.
We'd like to take a moment to talk about Arasti. Don't let pain or injury take you from the gym. Talk to an Arasti provider for free. In 15 minutes, an Arasti provider will help you to understand what's happening in your body, the source of your pain, and the best options for getting pain-free and performing at peak levels as quickly as possible. There's absolutely no cost or no obligation to schedule with Arasti. Schedule your no-cost 15-minute chat now at arasti.com/CrossFit-recovery. That's AIRROSTI.com/CrossFit-recovery.
And it took 4 days to get here, but let's peek inside the leaderboard. 8 events down, and we have our top 3 in our elite divisions for the individual and team. And let's start with the men's elite team. The boys reign supreme. What a weekend they had. I'm looking at the leaderboard right now with Travis Mayer, Noah Olson, and Chandler Smith. And all except the last event, every finish inside the top 3 with 4 first place finishes, 1 second and 2/3, getting 6th at the end. They really didn't have much to play for at the end. And an event like that, similar to what we were just talking about on the individuals, is like, listen, you're going to have, it's a lot easier to get through that if you've got something to play for. And if you don't, then it's just a matter of getting through it. But, you know, start to finish, we don't usually see 3 elite individuals come together and have this much success, right? Yeah, a lot of times you'll see team guys together. Adrian, you know this is like
Mhm.
people that work together on a team, like that's a huge, huge thing. But they have experience with each other. They've trained together for multiple years now. They're all friends, and it seemed to work out for them. Nikki, what was it like watching the boys compete this weekend?
So fun. Like, they just looked like they were having the best time. And I feel like we've been sort of talking about Noah Olson having this almost like home court advantage. Like, this is really his jam, his competition, right? Like, it's been around for 10 years. He's been here every single year of it. So I feel like he brings some sort of energy to this competition overall, and especially to the team this weekend. So I just really liked the fact that they were always enjoying themselves. They were always having a good time, and they were always kind of like having a little bit of a party. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Adrian, you got Noah, who is still in his prime, Chandler, who is right there on the cusp of, I feel like he's always knocking on the door to break through the next level. Travis had a great season last year, but he's getting to the later end of his
Mhm.
career. When does, or if it ever does, that team thing start to knock on the old competitive door
Mm.
for some people?
It hits us all at a different time, to be honest with you. For example, and I'll use one of the goats of our sport, Rich Froning, as an example. It's while Rich had a great run and he was dominant, he didn't have to be done, and yet he felt that pull because of how much he enjoyed that camaraderie and the difference in pressure, the way that it kind of changed that perspective or position for him. And then there are guys who, man, I've been on the recruiting circuit. Okay, I've been making my rounds around the community, and there's just some people who are like, nah, man, I'm an individual athlete and I really enjoy that aspect of it. And that's just going to be my thing. And they will live and die as individual athletes, and not that they'll ever lose anything to step to the team side or but that's just their preference, and that's okay too.
Mm.
I would love to see a guy like Travis be on a team at the CrossFit Games. One, I know that he's got a tremendous community around him of legitimate contenders. There's a lot of fitness there at
Yes.
his gym, and a lot of people would probably be willing to locate around a person with that kind of potential and experience. And I feel like honestly, his skill set, his strength, his ability to still perform fast and well at gymnastics, but to be very specific with a team, it's really important to have just very high general work capacity so you can do
Mm.
things like push the big bob, move the worm without a thought, and then still have the skill set to operate under traditional CrossFit conditions, of course. And he's got a lot of that. So I don't
Mhm.
know if it'll ever come knocking on his door. I know he's got like 11 or 12 kids now. So um, I say that sarcastically, but I think they really do have four, right? They're at
They do
They
four,
have
have
4,
4,
yes.
yes.
Yeah.
which is just it literally is astounding. Travis has always been representing for the dads, which is killer.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think I would love to see a guy like that want to compete on a team one day, and I think the time might be coming soon for him.
That's a very good point on Travis's
Mhm.
skill set specifically to a team competition because he really doesn't have any weaknesses. He's very top end at everything that he does. And I think another thing is that he, he's a humble competitor.
Yep.
And having that as part of your tool belt, so to speak, right? When your ego isn't in the way whatsoever, I mean, that's a teammate that I want to be side
Yeah.
by side with. And I think Travis is a very important piece of something like that. And yeah, if he ever decides to step away from individual competition, I would love to see what maybe team competition could look for him in the future. On
Mhm.
the women's side, look, we were talking about it all weekend. I'll be the first to say I haven't been this happy to be wrong in a long time because I was like, why are we even talking about the girls competition? Like the Mayhem girls are gonna just like kick everybody's butt and what's the point of watching? And then Norway was like, excuse me, or however
Yeah.
you say that in Norwegian, but
Yeah.
but wow, what a weekend. Back and forth, back and forth. I mean, the blows that they exchanged event by event. Let me try to pull this up on the women's side between Krieger and Mayhem. Krieger wins by 6 points after 8 events. They tie for first in the first event. They go 1-3, 4-2, 1-2, 2-1, 2-1, 2-4, 1-2. Nothing outside of the top 5. They both got a 4th place finish, but Krieger comes through with Kristen Holta going team for the first time since retiring from individual competition and shines. And it's really exciting to see that because listen, you look at the athletes that were making up Mayfam, you're like, okay, we've said this 3 times already. 2 of the greatest female athletes to ever take the floor on the team side. Andrea Nisser, Taylor Williamson, and then you bring in a top 5 CrossFit Games individual athlete with Haley Adams. You're like, well, what where else were we supposed to expect? Because you have Kristen Holta, who is in a league of her own as well on the individual side, walk in with 2 people we don't really know that well. They have been on the European circuit. In fact, they just won the IF3 championship, I believe, on the team side
Yep.
prior to this. So they are successful and they did do well on the team side last year by podium, but
Yep.
they're new.
Yep.
And yet they take down Mayfam. Nikki, what was it like watching that battle all weekend?
Just exciting, unexpected, like you said. I mean, I think that I was looking at the leaderboard going into this weekend and making my predictions and being like, all right, like I guess everyone can go home because we know which women are going to stand on top of the leaderboard. And you know, watching the shakedown happen, kind of just event over event over event, kind of just got me excited about who else out there is like
Mm,
in the competitive field that we might not know about. It kind of just it makes it exciting when every new competition starts and you're like, okay, like who's gonna step out here? What names have I not heard of before? Who got real good in the off season? Who filled all their gaps? And it kind of just I don't know, it lends itself to the growing and expanding nature of this sport. Like, where else, what other regions of the world are we gonna like expand into? And they're just like the most epic athletes that come out of there. It's cool to see.
Adrian, Team Krieger was Ingrid, Holdenmeyer, Kristen Holta, and Lena Richter. Those are
Yep.
your 3 female athletes. Now, I'm gonna reach a little bit because this is media and this is kind of what we do every once in a while. So I'm gonna put up some billboard stuff and you just let me know how that sounds.
Okay.
This is an off-season event. Mayhem men did not fare well. Of course, it wasn't their, I would say, elite squad.
Yep.
Mayhem women didn't win, and this was their most elite squad. Going into the offseason, seeing this as a competitor, does this put a little blood in the water for some teams around the world that can say, hey,
Hmm.
maybe we got a shot? And will that change some people's minds in the offseason going into the open season? That's, well, starting in what, 4 or 5 weeks?
Right.
Yeah, the short answer is yes, and I think it should. Now, I'll be specific and say that for Team Krieger and the environment that they're in, specifically Ingrid and Lena, um, with the gym and the team that they're a part of, and the competitive nature, the way they train, this is, here's what we use this in sports a lot, but you're like, hey, you don't want to really give the enemy an opportunity, right? Or let them
Mm,
think they have a chance. Well, now they know they have a chance.
mm,
And so, from a momentum perspective, the ladies, I think we will see tremendous strides, especially knowing what they just did on the European circuit as well. Um, Thinking this from a holistic perspective, they've got momentum, they've got confidence. Now they've actually proven to themselves that in a head-to-head matchup, they can withstand the test. And of course, yeah, we know that they had Holty, but also Mayhem had Haley. So it was a bit even almost from the trade-off there. And so I do think that other teams can look at this as well. And then, those women got to say, like, hey, where the guys at? Where are boys at? And
right, right, yeah.
hope that the men now are equally as hungry and putting forth their best effort. And I still lean into this too when it comes to my opinion on teams, is that you can have some great men, and that is important. But it's more important to have great women. I believe that they
Mm.
have the opportunity and the ability to carry many great teams because of the parity still on the team side, specifically in women's events and the way events tend to play out and are tested. So with that being said, I believe that these guys made some ripples in the water, to say the least, and it might be a little blood there too.
Well,
Mm.
that just makes it more exciting with the open coming around the corner, and then we get back into the CrossFit Games circuit. But on the individual women's side, we had a what was a unknown relative to the, I would say, to the most of the CrossFit Games community, with Ellie Turner, who was sitting on top of the leaderboard for 3 straight days. But then Sunday hits and we were wondering if the axe was going to fall, and it was held by Emma McQuaid, who
Yeah,
just worked her way up the leaderboard. And at the end of the day, she was sitting in first going into the final. She did exactly what she needed to do at the end. And Emma McQuaid sits on top of the leaderboard at the end of 4 days of competition. I had her in my podium. Um, Bethany Shadburn was my pick to win, but McQuaid was my second. And it's been really nice to see this evolution for Emma. Nikki, what do you think we can expect to see of Emma going into this year's CrossFit Games season?
I mean, she can only continue to get better, I think, truly. And this has got to be a confidence boost. I mean, you come off of a weekend like this where every other competitor was just like really gunning, really had a chance, truly. This was not a field where I was like, oh, clearly it's going to be, these 3 women, and you come out on top like this, like that has got to give you just the mental capacity to dig so much deeper in the training season and end up so much further when we get to the actual CrossFit Games. And I think too, the fact that she's been training alongside some of the best. She's got Sam Briggs in her corner, figuring that out and using the legacy of training there, I think is only going to continue to propel her toward the top.
Adrian, Nikki was talking about, training partners and then confidence. Explain to those who don't, they're like, oh, we hear that, but what does that mean? What does a finish like this do for your training confidence going into the season? How important is that?
it's everything. And I say it's everything, like truly. meaning that, from a spectator's perspective here, we watch these athletes go and they throw down, and we see them 3 days and 4 days at a time, and it's awesome. And they either perform at a really high level or they don't perform so well. But what we don't often remember and think about is that these guys put in every single ounce of their being into being who they are when we see them, meaning that they sleep right, they eat right, they recover right, they invest in their bodies through getting massages and chiropractic adjustments and special coaches for their mindset. They're doing it all nowadays to be the best that they can be. And so when you get an opportunity to step onto the competition floor and you feel like all of those things that you're doing are showing and bearing fruit, it's literally like starting at the top of a mountain and rolling that snowball and getting that snowball effect as it continues to build in size and speed and gain momentum. It's like she could potentially use this and become truly something that we can view as an unstoppable force through the open, through the quarterfinals, and through the semifinals. And to me, someone like Emma, when I look at her and I see her, and somehow I overlooked this before this weekend, but I got a good glimpse of it today. I looked at her before one of those events, and she's kind of got some dark, features
Mm.
under her eyes, and she's just kind of there, and she's like very focused and locked in, and she's someone that you would naturally be drawn to if you had to pick someone like, okay, who am I going to pick to win this street brawl? That one, she's going to win. She's gonna
The
beat
quiet
everybody's
one in the
tail.
corner.
Yeah, and I didn't recognize that early, but I see it now, and I see that even as she's progressed through her standings within the CrossFit Games, like year by year, just a steady, hey, 19th, hey, 14th, hey, 12th, that she's ready to break into the top 10 and potentially the top 5 if
Mhm.
she can use this momentum going into her training and everything else.
I like it. I like it. And not or last but not least, Pat Vellner gets the hat trick. He gets his third consecutive Wodapalooza championship, but this time he did it in not so dramatic fashion as the comeback that we saw in the previous year. And listen, he got a win to start off the weekend, and then he never looked back after that. He had a couple events right outside the top 10, but when you have one that has, a swim in it, like we said yesterday that it wasn't the longest swim in the world, yet there is improvement there. So I think that's a major positive for Pat Vellner getting 10th in the Celebrate 10. It is what it is there. But look, first, fifth, first, that 12th and 10th we just talked about, and a sixth and a fourth. I mean, that's just classic Vellner in a sense of he just rode that top 5 finish line from start to finish and gets his third win. And he looked good. Like whether he was in training or getting ready for this, but like the guy looked great. He looked calm. He looked confident. Nothing really ever shakes him to begin with. I mean, you can fall off a 30-foot cargo net and still come back and finish okay. You're a pretty unflappable human being, but I like this Vellner that we're seeing in, the opens around the corner. Vellner was one swim, one paddle event away from winning the CrossFit Games last year. Let's just say it what it is, right?
Yep. Yep.
That event alone kept him out. That was it. One. Now imagine him having a decent event with a bit more confidence, not having to dig out of that hole all weekend. Who knows, right? I know Justin's just getting better. Seems like every week that kid gets better because he's so young. He's 22.
So young.
Vellner, obviously, he's getting into more of life priorities, taking up more of his time and energy. But I really like this Vellner going into the next season. Nikki, how about yourself? Are we seeing the best version of Pat going into the 2022 season?
We are, and I'm a little bit like pleasantly surprised to see it because, like you said, he does have a little bit more life getting in the way these days, right? Like, and he always, in a sense, he always has had that because for several
Right.
seasons, he was still in school while he was
Yep.
competing, and we were talking about getting his career started, and now, of course, we're talking about the fact that he has a family for the first time, and I think he said in his final interview that he's got like a really good kind of like system going on at home where his wife is still on maternity leave and is doing a lot of the kind of kid training while he's doing the gym training, and everyone's got their lane for now, which is cool. And I love to see the fact that he's trying to figure out how to balance his competitive life with his dad life. It just doesn't work out all that well for everyone right off the bat. And since I'm in severe sleep deprivation mode myself, I can totally relate. So I'm just so pleasantly surprised to see that this is working for him. And I think if he can continue on this path, then he will be the one to beat when we get into the next CrossFit Games season for sure.
Adrian, oftentimes you talk about life things taking away from maybe your competitive focus or your training time, kids, family, jobs, whatever. But what part of that is actually a bonus when you think about digging your roots in and not having to worry about digging anymore? Like what type of confidence does that give an athlete, or peace does that give an athlete, knowing that, yeah, we've got all these life things coming in, but I've settled them down. I've built a foundation that I can now build upon instead of searching for more pieces. What's that like?
It's I really believe this, and I think this is something great for even young athletes that aspire to compete one day. I think that's an important question for everyone to ask, and I appreciate that you ask it. It's because everybody has different paths to greatness, and some people really need balance and family and a
Mm,
career and those types of things. I mean, look at Pat Vellner specifically and Brett Fikowski, right? They've both been known to carry jobs through full-time jobs, like real grown-up
yeah,
jobs,
real
that they went to
jobs.
universities for, and they thrived uh, under those circumstances and conditions. Now you add on that to a family, whether it's a wife and a child or a spouse and two children and a business or whatever it might be. I think, and we use this cliche term because it's popular now, but discipline as freedom can be a perspective
Mm,
of it all. And someone like Pat, he's admitted he succeeds in compartmentalizing his life. So the freedom there that he's created, I believe, from an outside perspective, is that when he's at the gym, he's competitive Pat, right? He's
ah,
he's Patty
yeah,
Velney, and that's it.
right.
And then when he's at
Yeah.
home, it's an opportunity to not be that, not bring that bad workout home with him, not bring that missed lift home with him, not bring that nagging shoulder issue home with him and focus on his lady and his child and the things that he has going on. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because sometimes as younger athletes, when all we have to think about is working out and that's all you do all the time, it's very easy for it to overcome you, and sometimes it's too much. It's actually a deterrent instead of a positive. So I do believe that Pat's kind of found that sweet spot for himself and his roots and the things that are important, and everybody's going to have to be able to manage that at some point. It just depends on when.
I love that. I love that perspective. I love that answer. I
Yeah.
mean, just thinking about that, is like, man, nothing gets rid of that missed lift or bad workout at the gym than a hug from my son.
Hmm.
I tell you what. So that's really cool, and I love the way you looked at that. So let's take a look back at the 4 days of competition, a little review of 22 Wodapalooza. I'll give each of you guys a little time to think about this. Just one good takeaway that you had from the weekend, and I'm gonna look more at the women's side. Down the line, is that if we fast forward to say the CrossFit Games in 2022, the big question coming out of Rogue was, is Tia beatable? Because Tia is going for her sixth straight. No one's done six. She will potentially be the only one, and maybe the only one ever again. And the question was, can Annie do it? And she almost did it Rogue.
Hmm.
But the question was, who else is going to help Annie do that? Is there anyone in the field that can help that? Because I tell you what, not one person is going to be able to take down Tia in Madison. It's not going to happen. It's going to take multiple people. And so when I see events like this and Dubai and Rogue Invitational, I was like, okay, well, now I see an Emma McQuaid has entered the game. I see a Gabrielle Magala.
Hmm.
Is our teens are only getting better, right? Annie's only getting better. And then maybe what Annie said is like, I can't do it alone. Maybe we're starting to see a bigger group of female athletes coming in that could possibly push Tia as a collective whole coming into this season. So that's one little takeaway I took from the women's side, especially this weekend. Nikki, how about yourself? What is one of the big things you took away from this weekend?
I think one of the things that sort of strikes me is just how popular events like Wodapalooza are when it comes to bringing together our community as a whole, including so many other divisions. And I kind of was watching I was watching the stream being like, wow, like how many people around the world are seeing this for the first time and are watching these elite athletes do their thing and are on the games website or the Wodapalooza website clicking over into like the other
Mm,
stages and checking out the other divisions and maybe doing a little bit of a comparison like, oh, look at these scaled athletes and they're doing something a little bit different, but then these elite athletes are kind of doing the same thing but for their level, and then like check out these adaptive divisions because there's just so many different things that happen on the Wodapalooza stage. And I really felt like this past weekend the elite athletes were a perfect representation of our overall community and just being the very tip of the pyramid and the tip of the spear. And it made me really proud to like walk into my gym over the weekend and be like, I'm gonna
mm,
do my version of a scaled postpartum
yeah,
workout this weekend.
yeah.
And then I'm gonna go home and watch all the big dogs play. And sometimes you feel a little bit of a disconnect when you're watching an elite competition because it is just so far beyond anything you could imagine. And I thought that this weekend did a really nice job blending. Yeah, these people are superhuman, and I want to see who the fittest of them are. And then also like maybe I want to tackle a version of this in my gym, or like maybe I want to see what the scaled or the masters are up to this weekend too. And the teams also lended a very different dynamic than they do at games. So that was pretty cool to watch, I think.
That the way you describe it sounds to me like an affiliate.
Yeah, totally.
You walk into affiliate, maybe it's your first time, and you're watching someone do muscle ups because that draws your attention. And you're like, wow, look at that. And like, yes, that's amazing. And then they look over to the left, you're like, I can do that.
Hmm.
Right. And that's what I wanted to see over the couple of stages. And just like you're talking about, there's like, yes, this grabs my attention, but this draws me in.
Totally.
Right, and
Yep.
that's what you that's a perfect explanation of what this weekend was. I love that, and that's a beautiful part about Wodapalooza is that, yeah, we get all these people drawn in with this elite division, but then they get to click over and see a
Hmm.
scale division. It's like, oh, I can do that, or they see the adaptive division, like, wow, there's I have so many people I know here that just need to know that this is the thing,
Totally.
right? Or you look at the masters division, and like life isn't over at 40. That I thought was when I was in high school.
Right,
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 because like every
exactly.
40-year-old I knew in high school had just had they were done. There was no outlet for them anymore,
Yeah,
even if they were athletes for the majority. And now I'm like, 40, I'm just getting started,
totally.
right? I can't wait to be 40, 50, 60 and doing these things, right? And flexing on my
Oh,
kids'
yeah.
friends. Like I'm gonna be doing that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So you're right. I really do like that. Adrian, how about you?
And there's a lot of storylines. So I was drawn in this weekend altogether. But 100,000 smackaroos to the winner? I really
Not a
like the
Hey.
bad
sound of that.
payday.
Not a bad payday for those two. And I mean, I'm looking back at all the money that's been on the table throughout the off season, right?
Mhm.
And that just gets me excited about the way that we're incentivizing and taking care of the athletes and really
Mm,
trying to make a transformation and a push to make this a legitimized professional sport or a legitimized professional circuit, even if we could
Mm.
go there. And I think that there's progress being made in ways to support athletes that's never been before seen. And I think that as spectators, as commentators, as people who nerd out about exercise like we do, there's going to be continued opportunity for growth within our sport. And I think that's really special. And that it has excited me and encouraged me a ton, just because knowing that, the steeper the reward, the more people that are going to continue to come out of the woodworks, right? The more people that are going to come out that we don't really know where they came from. We don't know that name, or we heard about them, but that was when they were a Division 1 football player or a
Yeah,
Division
yeah.
1 swimmer or whatever it might be. And that was just something that stood out to me as we concluded this weekend and they're holding up those checks. I was like, the sport has really come a tremendously long way, even through a season in life like COVID has brought upon the
mm.
entire world.
Yeah, very true.
um and then there was just one last shout out I wanted to give to, I think it's Ariel, right? Ariel, who snuck on the
Ariel
podium.
Lowen?
Come
Ariel
on,
Lowen.
Ariel,
Yep.
Oh,
representing for the
mama,
moms out there. Yo,
right?
I had to be like, what? And again, someone that I just slept on because she stinking won Granite Games last year. And I just looked at her name and was like, ah, yeah, maybe. But she continued to persevere throughout the weekend. So I wanted to give her some love and say, great job. What way to execute.
100%. And yeah, she deserves a shout out because, she came out of Granite Games and there was like, how'd you get here? How'd you do it? And
Yes.
then she had a performance at the games like, okay.
Mm,
And then Rogue Invitational and then taking third at Wodapalooza. I was like, okay,
yeah.
right. What says like time to put some respect on your name.
That's
Yes.
Can't
right.
wait for the 2022 season. And that's the beauty about Wodapalooza, right? This, though it's the last off-season event, this is really the event that kicks things off because open registration has begun. If you guys are listening and you aren't signed up, I've been in lockdown COVID house, so I signed up. I was like, I got nothing better to do. I might as well put my name in the hat, throw my hat in the ring like everybody should do worldwide. Go to games.crossfit.com and sign up. Join your community. Test yourself. It's your one time to really see where you're at physically, whether it's on the leaderboard with all your mom friends, if it's like me and Adrian who just want to see where we stand as a man to man on the on the leaderboard. And that's just the way we do things, right? But
That's
it's a
it.
wonderful community event, just like we had at Wodapalooza. So get signed up. But that'll do it for us this weekend. Niki, Adrian, thank you guys so much for joining the show. And man, the open is around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. Get signed up. We'll see you guys next time.